Talking of devolution, there was anger last week when the Prime Minister said there was no role for the Welsh Assembly and Scottish Parliament in the withdrawal agreement bill. He was wrong about that. They do have a say on quite a lot of it, and they have every intention of using that say to, say no to it. I've been talking to devolution expert Jess Sargeant from the Institute for Government. Jess Sargeant, what role is there and has there been for the Welsh and Scottish governments?
So, Brexit has posed a lot of difficulties for intergovernmental relations. In terms of the Brexit process and negotiations, both the Scottish and Welsh governments have been quite vocal that they felt they haven't really been included in the process, and the UK government has gone on regardless. Now, the UK government has obviously now returned with a withdrawal agreement, and the Prime Minister recently said that there was no role for the Scottish and Welsh governments.
Was he quite right about that?
Not quite. So while the EU matters are reserved, they are a matter for the UK Parliament. Lots of issues that are needed to legislate for and implement that withdrawal agreement do touch on devolved areas, and therefore, according to the Sewell Convention, which is a kind of convention that although the UK Parliament can legislate in devolved areas, it will only do so with the consent of those parliaments.
It's a convention, not a law though, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we found out during the Article 50 court case that wasn't legally enforceable, so it really does rely on the Prime Minister and the UK government listening to the devolved nations.
Bringing back lots of fond memories of devolution stories in the past. So it struck me that both sides were playing politics to a greater or lesser degree. The Prime Minister was playing down the role of the devolved administrations, and they were playing up their role. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that probably is the case. As I said, I think the Prime Minister went too far in saying that there were no.
It's not a veto,
role.
But it is a consent.
Absolutely, but equally, it's only certain parts of the bill that the Welsh Parliament, the Welsh Assembly and the Scottish Parliament have to consent to. Specifically, those areas that change the devolution settlement, so giving powers to ministers and things like that. The actual principle on the bill is not really a matter for the devolved.
And there is another running sore, isn't there, which is what happens with EU structural funds afterwards, or aid money afterwards, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund.
Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of kind of unanswered questions about what happens after Brexit and how EU funding is replaced. Now, the UK government has committed to respect the devolution settlements in how it allocates that funding, but there's a lot of anxiety amongst the Welsh government and the Scottish government that mechanism might be used to kind of spend money directly in devolved areas and bypass the devolved administrations.
They may have some grounds for that as well. Some of the things that the Prime Minister said when he was a candidate for leadership, and since he's seemed to suggest that they would look at interfering as the devolved administrations might see it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the UK government is obviously very keen to make the case for the union, and part of the way it sees to do that is to kind of show the benefits of being in the UK, and I think that rhetoric has sometimes perhaps scared the devolved administrations that it might be used to their detriment.
Let me put you on the spot then. How serious a risk do you think there is of the union of the United Kingdom breaking up as a result of these pressures?
Yeah, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that intergovernmental relations are in the kind of worst state than they have ever been. Obviously, the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government is pushing for a second independence referendum. It's quite likely we might see that happen within the next couple of years. There's also issues about Northern Ireland and questions about a border poll and support for a reunification there. Even in Wales, there's kind of a growing independence movement that's starting to rear its head. So unless the UK government changes its approach to the union and how it deals with each of the governments of the UK, I think we're likely to see that these pressures are just going to increase.
Jess Sargeant, thank you very much.